Hello, welcome to the Self-Learning Podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start discussion on Unit 1 Legacy of National Movement with reference to development, rights and participation. And our topic is the idea of socialism. The Bolshevik Revolution in October 1917 created an interest in socialism in India, and small socialist groups emerged in the urban centers. Completion of the first five-year plan by the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics in 1934 created an enthusiasm for planning in India. In 1934, M. Visharaya, a great engineer, published a book entitled Planned Economy in India in April 1936. The Vishwaviraya plan could, however, be by no means called a socialist plan. In 1934, the Congress Socialist Party was formed within the Congress, and Gandhi resigned from the Congress, cited it as one of the reasons, and alleging Jawaharlal Nehru's open sympathy for the group. In 1935, Communist Party of India was formed and immediately banned by the British government. Most of the communists started working within the Congress Socialist Party. Jawaharlal Nehru, who had shown great admiration for socialism as early as 1928, delivered his presidential address to the Lucknow session of the Indian National Congress, announcing his conviction that the only solution of the world's problem and of India's problems lies in socialism. This statement created an ideological rift within the top leadership of the Congress, and Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel issued a statement to the effect that he had ideological differences with Nehru on matters like the nature of capitalism. Patel wanted to contest Nehru for the presidency of the Congress in the next session at Faizpur. Nehru recounted his position, stating that the socialism was not his ideological plank for the presidential election, and Patel withdrew from the contest. In his presidential speech at Faizpur, Nehru called for the building up of a powerful joint front of all the anti-imperialist forces in the country, including the organized workers and peasants. In the backdrop of the general provincial elections in British India, this ideological debate is significant. Now let us move to the next point, the idea of planning. It has been seen that the idea of planning had acquired popularity in 1934. Jawaharlal Nehru was succeeded as Congress president by another radical young man, Subhash Chandra Bose. He set up a national planning committee with Jawaharlal Nehru as chairman and Professor K.T. Shah as secretary. The ideological tension that was brewing in the Congress resulted in Bose resigning its presidentship in the next year. Still another year later, the Congress government in provinces resigned on the issue of the declaration of British India's participation in World War II. The work of the National Planning Commission was interrupted, but a number of subcommittees of the National Planning Committee prepared their reports. In 1940, a group of industrialists led by G.D. Birla prepared what is known as the Bombay Plan. The plan envisaged the doubling of per capita income and trebling of national income in 15 years. It divided industries into basic and consumption goods industries and admitted the necessity of reducing inequalities of wealth. Among the measures suggested towards this purpose were imposition of death duties, reform of the system of land tenure, and provision of the fullest scope for small and cottage industries, as well as state control of economy accompanied by state ownership of public utilities and basic industries. Economic control, however, was more important than ownership or management by the state, argued the Bombay Plan. Towards the end of the World War II, M. N. Roy, a leader of the Indian Communist movement and now a radical humanist, published a People's Plan. Unlike the Bombay Plan, it primarily emphasized agriculture and advocated nationalization of land and liquidation of rural indebtedness. Future industrialization would have to be primarily financed and controlled by the state. Expansion of production would have to be accompanied by the changes in distribution in favor of the common people, permitting an expansion of the total consumption by the community. Surplus production should be reinvested for raising employment and standard of living. Now the next point is the nature of Gandhian economics. It would be wrong to see the 1930 substance of independence statement of Gandhi as either the whole or the core of Gandhi's economic idea. Gandhi's economic ideas cannot be fully discussed in the present unit. Suffice it to say that it was dynamic and evolved from his pamphlet on Hind Swaraj, written in 1907, through a long course of his leadership of the Indian national movement. Initially, he opposed machines as instruments of imperialist exploitation and deprivation of the common masses of the people. Later, he watered down his opposition to machines. All through his life, however, he insisted upon the spinning wheel, which could give the poorest Indian villager, particularly women, a means of independent earning. Initially, he opposed class contradiction by means of his theory of trusteeship and change of heart of the owners to solve the problems of exploitation. Toward the end of his life, he appeared to have grown disillusioned about the prospect of change of heart. He even ceased to emphasize the need for revival of the idyllic, self-sufficient village community. But he never ignored the common man and went on stressing the need for revival of the small-scale and cottage industry. It is interesting to note that the National Planning Committee's subcommittee on agriculture, headed by a Gandhian, J.C. Kumarappa, recommended an integrated policy of land reform, beginning with abolition of zamindari and other intermediate rights, and proceeding to grant of tenancy to the cultivator and imposition of ceiling on agricultural land holding. Now we wind up the session. Take rest. Thank you very much for engaging yourself with the self-learning podcast.